ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
From Portland, Oregon. We say it to everybody. It's John Canzano from johncanzano.com. He's with us every single week. We missed him last week. We got our times crossed up. I screwed up, but it's fine because I'm an idiot. But he's with us here today. Bald-Faced Truth radio down there in Portland, Oregon, 750 The Game. And then, of course, everything you can find up there at johncanzano.com. How are you? Did you miss us last week?
I did miss you. And, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't my fault. We just didn't connect. It's spring break stuff, man.
I know.
And
I was checked out. I was checked out last week. I'm just going to tell you. I did two shows, and then I was off the rest of the week. Spring break, going on a golf trip with buddies. By the time Monday hit, I'm like, I don't really want to do anything.
Wait a minute. So this was a spring break where you went and did on your own spring break. This wasn't like a family trip.
All timer. One of the best spring breaks ever.
How did you pull that off?
I don't know.
Can we do an hour about this?
Yeah, we can. Well, the daughter, they did a preemptive spring break, the daughter and the CEO, because she's a sophomore, and they were like, well, we're going to go back east. We're going to go to New York and Boston. I'm like, okay, we're going to go look at schools. Okay, fine. So me and the 11-year-old, we call him the vampire, we said, oh, okay, we'll just hang out here. So we had a bachelor, few days, and then I had a golf trip that was booked, no family, and just 4 days of golfing and eating and drinking poorly. And yeah,
I like
now
it.
It'll take me 5 days to a week to recover.
There you go. Yeah. You got to be able to party and play.
Oh yeah. But I mean, as we get older, it is a wear and tear on you, sir.
Yeah.
It's just a wear and tear.
We got a lot to talk about today. I mean,
we do. Where do you want to start
with, man?
Well, I want to ask you. Yeah. No, this is your show. This is your time. Where do we want to jump right into media deals? What do we got? What do we know? What's the latest for this upcoming season for Pac-12 football or for Oregon State and Washington State?
So you've got the 2025 media rights deal for Oregon State and Washington State's 13 home football games, 7 of them at Oregon State, 6 of them at Washington State. And then you have the New World Pac-12 2026 and beyond. So these two deals are not being negotiated separately. They're being sort of done in conjunction or in concert with each other, I should just say. But 2025 has got to be announced here. You've got a football season coming. And I reported 9 days ago that they were close to a deal. I can tell you on your show today that deal has been finalized. And so they are very close to an announcement. I think the Pac-12 is getting its announcement, its messaging in order at this point. I'm told there is one little holdup in the deal in that one of the games, I believe it's an Oregon State home game, is being moved from a Saturday to a Friday. They're waiting for the opponent to just sign the contract so they have that finalized. But I expect, Puck, we could get an announcement as early as tomorrow. I think the NFL draft being like kind of a Thursday, Friday, as we start to go into the weekend. If I'm the Pac-12, I think Wednesday is the day you ideally want to make this announcement. I reported 9 days ago that the CW is the primary partner. I believe that's going to hold up. I am told that's holding up. 9 games on the CW, a studio show. CW really happy with what the ratings were last year. They're buying back in for 2025. I'm told that the other 2 partners are major network partners. And so keep an eye. We can speculate here on whether that's, is it a Fox ESPN? Is it a TNT? Is it a CBS? I would say, yes, it's somebody in that stable, the other 4 games. And so I think there's going to be, it'll be met with the normal, I need the HD feed on the CW. People that weren't able to find it last year, I can help you with that a little bit here today. And then it's going to be met with, wow, they got a major player involved. And could these players be involved in 2026 and beyond? I think yes. The answer is yes to that. I think, Teresa Gold told me last fall that they have a story to tell. They do not want to wait until 2026 to start telling it. So I think the partners that we see announced this week, and I do think the deal will be announced this week in 25, are likely to be involved in 2026 and beyond. I think you could draw that conclusion.
So we can speculate on what those others would be. I mean, I guess the 2 primary ones would be Fox and ESPN, or at least maybe Fox being.
I think it'd be one or the other, like one or the other. And I keep thinking, like, on one hand, Fox has been involved with the Mountain West Conference. If I'm Fox, would I trade my future in the Mountain West, because keep in mind, do you want the Mountain West 26 and beyond? Would I trade that future for the Pac-12's future? Yeah, I would. I would jump on the Pac-12 bandwagon. But we're also only talking about 4 games, Puck, and so it could be anybody. I mean, ESPN could come in, CBS could come in, Fox could come in. I could see TNT coming in on those 4 games. I think the bigger message is that it will be a massive linear provider, and I am told that they're really happy with those other 4 games. So I'm drilling down on that. I'll have the details as soon as I can get them at johncanzano.com. But I think we can say right now that the news is that deal for 25 has been finalized. The CW is the primary partner. 9 of the 13 games. There will be an Oregon State game that is set right now to be on a Saturday that will be moved to a Friday. I don't think that's unusual, in the world of college athletics. And then the deal, I think, will be unveiled as soon as tomorrow.
Okay. What does this mean, though, the beyond, though? So this takes care of this year. How close? I mean, I know fans would be asking the same question I would be asking. When do we know what the bigger deal is, the 26 and beyond?
Well, think about the tentacles of this. I was thinking about this today. I believe that the Pac-12 wanted to announce this deal on Monday. And the thing that was holding it up is this, opponent that just needs to formally sign this contract. Hey, we're good with moving the Saturday game to a Friday, because all these games are under contract. And so if you think about that costing you 2 or 3 days of hey, we're waiting for this to go through, this is just how the system works on a university. Expand that to, hey, they've got 8 or 9 members, right? And how many members have to sign off on this deal and how many moving pieces there are. So I think that does help explain, especially with a brand new media deal. There was a blank slate here. William Mal, Octagon, the consulting company that the Pac-12 hired, he came out and he said, hey, we're starting from scratch here. This is, on one hand, it's great because you can make it up as you go. You can package things in ways that have never been packaged before. You can even come up with really creative things with the schedule, Puck. Let's just say they stop at 8 football teams. Say they add only 1 more. Let's say it's a UNLV, and they add UNLV to the fold, and they stop. Could they do a home-and-home series with every rival in the conference and go, hey, we're going to play 9 conference games, but you're playing somebody twice, or that'll rotate? Sure. I don't know. They could just make this up as they go. So I think those kinds of conversations are what is delaying, hey, here's 25, and then 2 days later, here's 2026. I do know that the presidents and the athletic directors are all going to the Bay Area at the end of the month. They're going to be in person. And I really do feel like that's where real stuff happens. That's where shit gets done. When you get in the room together and you can look each other in the eye, you can go, okay, or what are we doing with X, Y, Z? So I don't think 2026 is way off in the horizon, but I think, it could take a couple of more weeks for them to say, hey, here's the expansion piece. Here's 26. But I think we'll get a peek at what they're looking at and how they're thinking and the appetite for these other media companies. I think we get that peek as soon as they unveil the 2025 deal, which I think happens, could be tomorrow morning.
Just to circle back to the adding 1 and maybe UNLV. Do you think that's what the presidents and people around the conference prefer?
I think that there's a real hesitation right now with Pac-12 leadership, the presidents especially, to get out over their skis too far with expansion moves that aren't no-brainers. When you look at the moves that the Big Ten made or the SEC made in expansion, all of these moves are no-brainers. Yeah. You take the LA TV market. Right. You take Oregon and Washington. There was no hemming and hawing over, are they good enough? No, they just took what they wanted and destabilized what they left behind. Pac-12 did that when they took those top teams out of the Mountain West. They took the cream of the crop out of the Mountain West and then went after those American schools. So I think there's a real hesitation here. And I look at the candidates that are out there. The list hasn't changed. It's UNLV. It's Memphis. It's Tulane. It's maybe a Texas State. It's maybe a UTSA. Beyond that, I'm really going, do you go for North Texas? I don't think you do. Do you stretch all the way to South Florida? I don't think you do. So I think there's just a real limited 4 or 5 schools you're after here. And within that, I see tiers. I think UNLV is at the top of that tier. And you look at the map, the geography of what the Pac-12 has built so far, it's all concentrated in one area, right. And Nevada is sitting right there next to it. And so to me, if the move I would make is one school, UNLV, done. Now, if you want to clearly be known as the 5th best conference in the country and end all debates, you take UNLV and Memphis, done. Because now you've got the 5th best conference. And in some years, your football champion may be seated ahead of the Big 12 champion in the playoff.
Okay, so but for those, I know they're going to, again, we'll have the same question here.
Yeah.
What is the situation with UNLV, though? Because you see all these reports out there, well, they've signed a grant of rights deal, or they're committed to the Mountain West. There's penalties if they leave. But there still is a chance they could get out and still join the Pac-12.
The quote I got, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I think it's just a dynamite quote. I had a leader tell me, if she can't land the plane, all bets are off. And meaning, if Gloria Navarez, the Mountain West Conference Commissioner, doesn't have the money that she promised UNLV and Air Force, all bets are off. Because that entire grant of rights is bound together with glue that is the money that she thought she was getting from the poaching penalties from the Pac-12 and exit fees from schools like Utah State and San Diego State and Colorado State and others. So if she doesn't have the money, Air Force probably ends up in the American, and UNLV doesn't have a home because, all that the sole reason UNLV committed back to the Mountain West was they were getting 24% of the potential pot. And that's not there. I thought it was really interesting that the Utah State athletic director, Diana Sabo, went public and made this comment about, all the contact that they initiated with the Pac-12 and how unhappy they were with the Mountain West. And I thought it was a really interesting tactical public comment because it really does undermine the argument that anybody got poached. It sounds like these schools that left the Mountain West were very unhappy and were initiating those conversations with the Pac-12. So UNLV is committed. UNLV is bound. UNLV has signed a grant of rights. Cool. But again, if she doesn't have the money, if she can't land the plane, all the bets are off.
How do you evaluate what Teresa Gould has been able to accomplish since taking over as commissioner?
I think she's smart. She's calculated. I think she cares deeply about a lot of people say, oh, we care about the athletes. We care about the students. I think she does. She got tears in her eyes when I talked with her we had breakfast, in the football season. And I was asking her about, I said, you really care about this? Her eyes got glassy, Puck. Like, I didn't see that from Larry Scott. His eyes got glassy when he got a contract renewal. It's like she cares about the conference. And so I think that passion and that determination is underlying all of this. She was at the Oregon State spring game. Mm-hmm. I knew she was going to be there. I worked really hard to find her. There were only like 4,000 people in that stadium. I couldn't find her, couldn't get her to comment. She texted me on her way out saying, oh, sorry, we didn't connect, basically. Yeah,
that was on purpose.
Yeah. I saw you. You didn't see me.
Yeah.
But I think that's smart because, George Kliavkoff made so many mistakes, making public comments, setting deadlines. All of these deadlines that mostly have been set by you, me, John Wilner. Yeah, the San Diego State AD said he thought the deal would be done by the end of the month. But most of the speculation has been from the outside. She's really been unwilling to follow the blueprint of George Kliavkoff, down to the point where she went out when she hired a media consultant. She found the biggest, baddest media consultant on the block. Octagon was out there. I'm sure it cost him an arm and a leg, but it was a departure from the Kliavkoff strategy of hiring your college buddy to negotiate the media deal. Sports media advisors hadn't done deals like this before, and Kliavkoff made mistakes. That was one of his fatal mistakes when you think about the 4 or 5 things that really went wrong. And so I think she's been really good here, smart. I think she is going to land the plane, to steal that metaphor. And I think they'll be positioned about as good as they can, given that, it wasn't that long ago that Oregon State and Washington State were sitting in a courtroom in Whitman County hoping that they had something to fight for.
Do you think when this comes out, and just for anyone that's coming in late, I mean, if you're listening to this later, you've already heard it, but if you're listening to it live, it changes some things. Yeah, you say that the 25 TV deal has been finalized. You think it's going to be announced probably tomorrow or with this week, and it's CW is the primary partner. Most games will be there, but then there's going to be what did you say? How many games? Probably off
Four
CW.
games. There are four other games, and those 4 games, I am told there will be with major partners, major traditional partners. So, we're not talking about, I'm just using this. It's not like an FS1 or a streaming game or CBS Sports Network or ESPNU. Where I'm talking about ESPN, CBS, Fox, Big Fox. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I took from my source that told me that this was done.
Do you think of what you've been able to gather from the conference, that is there a say or wiggle room with start times? That's always a big thing for fans. Or is it just, hey, listen, it's going to still be this uncertainty with start times once this stuff comes out? Or will there be some, hey, listen, here are the start times, and we've got it all mapped out for you?
No, I'm told that you're going to get the home game start times when this is announced. And I think you might have that tomorrow morning. So you're going to get, hey, they're kicking off on 4:30 on CBS. Hey, they're kicking off at 1:00 on the CW. I think those times are going to be locked in when you get that schedule. And so I think that's one of the advantages that the Pac-12 felt like it could offer fans, is not giving them a, hey, TBD on all these games, go try to make plans for your life. But I think that, they're trying to be hold as much control as you can possibly control. And the kickoff times, I think, were really important to Oregon State and Washington State when they are selling those season ticket packages.
It's a big deal. I think it's a big deal for people. They don't, especially on the home games, and especially for, I think, people that travel to Corvallis and Pullman. They just want to know when the games start and not left, a week out or 2 weeks out, and then have to scramble to get, hotels and travel plans.
I'm actually getting a text right now from a source who's watching.
Oh, wonderful. Hello, source. How are you?
Who says, yes, kickoff times will be set. So I think Oregon State, Washington State fans will be able to put those into their calendar, and they'll know that the games are kicking off when they're kicking off, and nothing's going to be jimmy jacking around, and you're not going to be on the road at 1 a.m. trying to get back from Pullman or Corvallis.
I don't drive back. I take the old 85 Volkswagen van and park it down by a river and just go there. So that's my solution to all. Hey, have you talked? I'm curious along those lines. WSU did a big feedback, like surveyed people, game day experience. Yeah. This has been a big deal over there. And I'm curious what the game day experience, what it's been like at Research Stadium. I've been there many, many years. I know a lot of Wazoo fans, after they came back from the Boise State game, were like, it's apples to oranges. It's unbelievable what their game day experience is like compared to what we have. Have you had a conversation with Ann McCoy recently? And I'm just curious of what do you think they'll address for their game day experience in the fall?
Well, I think it's that competition from the living room has been real since about 2017, right? We saw attendance declines in all conferences. Even the SEC was having declines, and the Big Ten was having declines, and more fans were choosing to watch games from home. And so you saw a lot of money being poured into the infrastructure, the stadium, loge seating, club seating, that kind of stuff. Boise State going all in with their stadium renovation. I was there. The cranes are over the stadium. Like they're really, they're updating the stadium. Oregon State took seats out and said, hey, we're going to go smaller. We're going to go more cozy, but we're going to create this Beaver Street where it's like, kind of an open food area. The seating at Oregon State is down so close. I think Washington State has got, the greatest thing it has going for it is that loyalty and the allegiance of the fans who have come back. So I think Oregon State and Boise State provide these examples for Washington State and Ann McCoy, to get in there and go, hey, look, we've got competition on game day. We have to give more than, hey, we're holding a football event.
Right.
Especially if you look at like some of the opponents it's not going to be UCLA. It's not going to be Oregon coming to your stadium. You better do a great job with that customer service experience and make the fans feel closer to the field and closer to the players than ever before, and increase some of the food options and do all that. So the amenities, the Wi-Fi even matter. Scott Barnes at Oregon State told me, he said they looked into when they were redoing the west side of the stadium. He was like, hey, that interactive experience, the ability for fans to even post on social media at some stadiums, you can't do it, right? Because you lose reception. So they were tuned into all of those things, and Ann McCoy is as well. I know that you think about the transition from Chun to McCoy wasn't ideal. Wasn't an ideal time. I mean, there has been a lot of bandwidth that has been expended on how are we expanding? How are we surviving? How are we paying the bills? On top of that, she had her football coach leave. On top of that, you had a basketball coach leave. On top of that, you are dealing with the house settlement and all the shifting sand with your feet. I mean, she's been drinking through a fire hydrant since she got onto the job. So I think that fan experience is part of it. I would be surprised if Washington State didn't move towards doing some of the things that, their peers are doing in the New World Pac-12, because there's a great example at Oregon State. Even the spring game, they opened concessions. They, parking was free. It was free to come into the event. After the scrimmage, they let all the fans come down on the field. Puck, the starting quarterback, Malik Murphy, it was like watching a women's basketball game. You know how the women's basketball players just get it after games?
Yeah, they do.
Taking pictures, posing, talking to kids. Malik Murphy, Oregon State's $1.5 million quarterback, stood in the end zone. There was a line that extended to the other end zone, Puck, of fans lined up for pictures. He stood there for an hour and a half and posed for every picture. You have to do that. That's part of the fan experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Because to your point, there's so much more competition that is going on right now with all these other external things that that's more convenient to watch the game from home, or to leave at halftime and go back to your RV. I think that's the one biggest thing that I think Washington State fans fight, is that they're good for the first half, and then there's this lure and this pull to the tailgate parking lot, and they just go there, and it's hard to get them back in.
Well, they don't
sure how you get back
in and out at Research Stadium.
Is that because they serve alcohol there?
What? Yes. Yeah.
That's the biggest. That's what I've heard is a big detractor from selling alcohol at in Pullman, is that people like to go back to the tailgate, and they don't want to be. You can't go back. You got to stay in here.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, it's kind of a give and take what they want to do. But I mean, I don't really care. I mean, listen, if more people stay in there because you're selling alcohol in there, great. I mean, that's fine.
What would you do? Would you have them shoot instead of the t-shirt cannons, they're shooting silver bullets?
Well, so yeah, give me a C- or some fireball, for those people that like that stuff. Shots. Yeah. Jello shots.
Jello shots.
Fire Jello shots.
Section 12 is getting Jello shots.
Yeah. Where are we at with the house settlement, NIL, and all that? And I want to morph into the situation that happened at Tennessee, and now it's involving UCLA. But are we getting closer to that being finalized, the house settlement?
Yeah, but the ADs that I'm talking to are concerned about enforcement, and especially for the viewers here who care about like Washington State, Oregon State, the New World Pac-12. I was talking to Chris Standiford, the Gonzaga athletic director, and I said, how are you feeling about the house settlement and NIL and regulation? And he said, is it going to be a real cap? Like that's that cap that they're going to cap for NIL dollars, or the revenue sharing inside the athletic department? Is that an actual hard cap, or are the schools going to be allowed to kind of wink, wink, nod, nod, go above and beyond, move some things around? And oh, by the way, the NIL deals are supposed to be real deals. This isn't just free money now, pay for play. You can't get paid to turn on the automatic sprinkler system at Texas. You're supposed to be doing a real job or a real appearance. He said, will there be enforcement of that? Because if there isn't, schools like Gonzaga and Boise State are in trouble, because they can't compete from a simple revenue standpoint, sharing revenue with players, NIL deals. They will not be able to compete there. But where they can compete, if there is some kind of real cap here, and they can go, okay, within this system, we can play money ball, and we can be smarter, and we can allocate differently. So, they have already part of the house settlement. By the way, the Pac-12 is named in that settlement. They're one of the Power Five. They're recognized and given a seat at the table for the house deal because there's litigation, but not recognized when it comes to revenue. It's a Power Four when you're paying out, and it's a Power Five when the bill comes due.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. But the Pac-12's got a seat at the table there, and I find it interesting that the Power Five has already grabbed an LLC that will be in charge of enforcement. They have anchored it in Delaware, where you've got some additional ability to kind of skirt regulation. And the enforcement arm, they've hired a a data firm to kind of study the deals and track all the deals and who's getting paid what. They've hired an accounting firm. So they are putting together the infrastructure for this enforcement piece. And the question is, will it be serious, or will it be, hey, the blue bloods are always going to get a break? Because the NCAA's biggest issue always was that it went after schools like SMU, it went after Cleveland State, it let Kentucky and North Carolina off the hook when it came to academic fraud at North Carolina in particular. And if that's going to be like the tact of the new House settlement, then this thing will truly be off the rails. But if they're really going to have enforcement and stiff penalties if you are painting outside the lines, then maybe this has a chance to provide some sort of guardrails.
The situation at Tennessee with the quarterback, I'm just going to call him Nico because I don't think I can pronounce his last name. You can take a stab at it if you want. It's just, somebody looks at this. You had a line in one of your pieces the other day, your emptying of the notebook, where you make a note from Paul Feinbaum, who just, older fans are gonna be turned away from college football because of everything that's going on. And I get a sense of that. I see that from my very own eyes, even, guys that are in my wheelhouse, that 45, 49 range, who are just like, I can't take it anymore. It's not what I grew up with, and it's bothersome. And it's frustrating to watch, but you see a situation like it plays out at Tennessee where there's a guy that's already under contract. And then we have our first ever holdout. He just holds out of the spring games, and I'm not going to participate until I get more money. Ultimately, Tennessee says, well, good, we're not going to negotiate with you. The deal's the deal. And he ends up hitting the portal and transfers to UCLA, which then there is the snowball effect of that, because they just had a quarterback transfer in the winter from Appalachian State?
Yeah.
And then now he's in the portal, and he goes to Tennessee. It was essentially a trade, which your podcast partner, I thought, made a great point, John Wilder. This is something that's going to happen. You're going to see schools now trade. Yeah. And we're going to see that element come into college football. For guys like me and older people, I mean, how do you make sense of this? And do you think college football has a real issue on their hands of losing a lot of fans?
I think they do, and I think they know it. And I think the only problem is they're so beholden to television that they can't do the things that are necessary to fix it. And they, by the way, let the horse out of the barn with NIL and transfer portal because they were too slow to create regulation. Like they should have a decade ago, 15 years ago, said, hey, we feel bad. We want a revenue share. Here's what we want to do. Instead, they ended up, with a lawsuit on their hands. And there are more lawsuits coming. The kid from Tennessee, I don't necessarily blame him. I think he's playing the game. And I think he's got a parent who is delusional and off the rails. And look around at your local club sports team and ask yourself if you've got one of those in your circle. You probably do. If you don't, it's you. So pay attention to that. So if you are tracking this, like I always think of college as like, ideally, this is supposed to be higher education. You've got this Iamalava kid who, is learning something here. They've overplayed their hand, and it costs them money.
Yeah,
so it's a valuable lesson about operating in a space that you're not familiar with, where you're not really. The transaction is based upon the potential of your play. It's why we have agents in the NFL who know better, who negotiate these deals. And you have parents, in a lot of cases, parents care and they ask the right questions or they consult with the right people. But you have other parents that just don't get it. And in this case, you have one that cost his kid probably at least $1 million, maybe more, and a lot of embarrassment. Yeah. But I think it is turning people off, Puck. And I hear from those readers, and I thought it was older fans. I thought it was older. I was thinking, the 45 to 85 age range is where you've got some vulnerability.
That's my peak viewership right there.
Yeah. So, but I think it even hits younger fans as well, because the thing that made college athletics so beautiful and so interesting to me was that it was different. And now it looks like everything else. It feels like everything else. And in some ways, it's the worst of everything else. And I think it's turning people off to the point where they're going, my school doesn't have a chance to compete for a championship or even a 10-win season. Therefore, what am I showing up for? It's why that fan experience in the stadium becomes more valuable. It better be a real social thing and a bonding, unifying, fun thing for your family, because the substance of the game has been altered in a way that doesn't make college football more attractive.
In a way, John, it's professional sports now have offered more stability for when they draft players than college football, because in the NFL, you drafted, the NFL draft is this week. You're going to have fans are going to watch that guy for the next 4 years, almost 99% of the time.
Yeah.
They're going to trade somebody within 4 years, but there's some stability with that. Not in this sport. There's not when you get, you sign someone to an to a scholarship. He or she may be there for a year, and then they're off to another school, and then off to another school, and off to another school. I think that's what is immensely frustrating. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, because I think everybody shares that frustration, but I'll go through, my own school. I would even probably ask this same question to Washington fans. Even though they had a disappointing season last year for basketball, they're going to get a brand new team this year. Okay, with no assurances that that's going to be any good, because you just proved last year that you spent all this money on one particular player and they weren't good. And then the same thing for Washington State. They're going to have a brand new team again. And it's just like, okay, I don't know any of these guys they're bringing in. And do I really want to invest my time, my fanship in watching guys that are going to be there for a year and then bolt someplace else or graduate? It has turned me off big time, and it's terrible because I love college sports. Love it. But it's just it's awful. It really is.
And I don't think you're alone. And I think that there are a lot of fans that are being tested right now. I think the games themselves, last year we got told, oh, look, ratings are up for the CFP. Well, they forget, it's an expanded playoff. There's a whole bunch more games.
Sure.
And, viewership, of course, there were more people watching because there were more games and it was new and novel. Oh, look at the tournament. The NCAA tournament ratings were up. This was great that, there were fewer mid-majors, but, it was great for the blue blood programs. I need a bigger sample size, because I do feel, even as a sports media person, I feel challenged right now, because people used to ask me, Puck, they'd say, what's your favorite sport to cover? And it was college football. There was nothing that competed with it. And right now I'm going, I miss college football. What happened to it? And so I think there is a pivot point here that the commissioners of the Power Four in particular better pay attention to. And I know they feel like they're on the run with all these lawsuits, but they better pay attention to it, because it's not expansion and it's not necessarily the portal or NIL that's going to kill the golden goose. It's what you're talking about. It's the connection of fans to the game. People went, oh, the NBA ratings are down. It's because they're shooting too many threes. That's not why. It's because fans stopped feeling connected to the NBA game, and the NBA is going, oh, we better get that connection going back again. College football's got to pay attention to that. Fans are being disconnected right now. That's not going to be good for your business.
I'm gonna make a pivot here, and it's gonna probably be a bad pivot. But you talked about community, right, and connection. You wrote a piece this week that I think I'm reading it on the plane. I'm in tears reading it, and you do that too often, because it's a beautifully written piece about just a horrific, tragic situation that happened with a softball team in Oregon at Umpqua Community College. And they get in a car accident. They're hit by a drunk driver. Their entire team was on that van, and two people lost their lives, one being the coach, another being a first baseman. I mean, it's just, you read it, and you had a line there at the end I'm going to get to, but you read it and you're just heartbroken. And I don't know, for me to read it, I think for a lot of people to read it is challenging, because it was I want to praise you for writing it, but I don't want to praise you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
I wish you didn't have to write it.
I know. And I wasn't planning to write Easter morning. We got up and the kids were doing an Easter hunt, but and finding the eggs and eating chocolate at dark 30. And I I had heard on Saturday at the Oregon State spring game about the accident, because the accident happened Friday night, 10 o'clock. They're returning from Coos Bay. They're making this trip on, this winding kind of dark highway. Highway 42 goes from Coos Bay to Roseburg. This softball team at Umpqua Community College, it's the women's softball team. It's the first year they've played. They didn't have a program before this season. The coach started the program, and they don't have a home field. They play their games at local high school fields, or they borrow like the Western Oregon field, or they played the home games at 7 different diamonds. They practice inside their gym by setting up bases. It's a really good story about a coach and a team. They hold tryouts. They, grab, the woman who was killed, the first baseman, was the goalie on the soccer team, and they got her to come play first base. And so they pull this team together, and it's just this great story about kids that are doing what college kids should do. They're hoping, they're dreaming, they're doing a healthy activity, they're doing everything right. And they're on this Highway 42 at 10 o'clock, returning after sweeping a doubleheader. Good for them. They must have been feeling great. And they're on the team bus, and and they encounter a driver who had a prior DUI conviction in January. Should not have been on the road. Should not have, you had a conviction in January. You should not be driving. And the driver crosses the center line and hits the team bus head on. Coach was driving the bus. She was killed. First baseman was killed. 2 people are dead. And you're right. Like there's part of me when I'm writing a piece like that, I had glassy eyes the whole time. I reached out to the Oregon State Police. I get the police report. It's devastating. The destruction of it. It's a 5-hour investigation. There's wreckage all over the road. It's the one pronounced dead at the scene, 1 taken to the hospital, 8 players with injuries. And, it also jumps out at me that on the police report, it says, impaired driving is suspected as the cause of the accident. I'm getting choked up even now talking about it. And I'm writing this, and you have to immerse yourself in it with the players and talking to people who know the players and the coach, and looking at photos on social media and posts on social media. And you get this picture of this softball team that was just doing everything right. Like everything we ask of college kids today. It was the best of the best. It was the healthiest of the healthiest. And they're doing it together. And they cannot control that this driver crosses the center divide on a 2-lane highway and changes their lives. Even the 8 kids that walked away or went to the hospital after, their lives are changed.
Oh, for sure. Forever altered. Forever altered.
Yeah. But
forever.
I'm wrestling about 2/3 through it. If people want to read it, it's at johncanzano.com. But I'm wrestling with how do I finish this piece, Puck? Like, what is it? Can we learn something from this? Of course, drunk drivers. Guess what? If you get in a car after you have had alcohol or drugs, you might as well swing a wrecking ball across the freeway. I mean, we know you're not just jeopardizing your life. You are a selfish, stupid person. You are a fool if you get into a car after having alcohol and you drive. And yeah, okay, there's one lesson, but the rest of it for me was really in piecing together the season that these kids were having, the inspiration, they were living in the moment. There was this photo that I didn't mention it in the piece, but they were getting on the team bus before they were going off to one of their road trips, and the coach brought donuts for the team, and the players took a picture. And everybody was smiling, Puck. And I was like, it's those little moments in life that we too often don't pay attention to that ultimately end up being like the glue and the thing. It's like the song that is being played in the background of our everyday existence. And not to miss that these were kids that were living hard and fun and playing a sport that they loved to play. And they got to see the first win of a season, the first strikeout, the first home run of a season. And it's really not how you die. It's not Highway 42 with a driver. It's all that life that comes before that moment that we need to pay attention to. It's how you live.
Yeah, that and I wrote that down because that's how you end the story. He says it's how we live, not how we die, that matters. And it's so true because and I think everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Because I think every time you go to a funeral, someone passes, you'll always hear, someone say, "Hey, you got to live every day like it's your last." You hear that a lot. And everyone, and then for that 1 day or 2 days or a week, everyone like lives that way and feels that way. And then it slowly just, okay, you don't live that. You get stuck in your routines. You're doing your routines every day. But it's every moment because you just don't know when it's over. And we don't appreciate enough the moment. We think about the past, we think about the future instead of like right now, today, Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
What's
and
Tuesday
I'm terrible. I'm a big offender. Like
so am I.
It spoke to me because as I'm writing that sentence, like, it's my, I get real caught up in what's next. What am I repeating? What am I writing tomorrow? Where's the show today? Who's the guest? And I do sometimes take this moment that we're in together here, Puck. This show, this moment is important. And those moments where you can get down on the carpet and play with your kid, or set your phone down and engage with the person next to you for 5 minutes. It's gold. I mean, that's the gold of life. Those are the things that we're going to look back and think. And, I am devastated for the coach who leaves behind a daughter and a husband who is also a coach on the team. And I am devastated for the family of the first baseman who she's from Idaho and just such a bright light. You could just see like she was a really good goalie. She was playing first base. And I kept thinking this, I didn't mention this in the piece, like the goalie is the last line of defense on a team, right? Like when all hell is broken loose and there's a breakdown, it's the goalie who's there, that last line of defense. And I'm not surprised that kid ended up playing first base too.
Of course, same deal.
It's the same thing. Like that's just who she is and who she was. And I just love that about that kid. And I wish that I had never known them and written about them.
Yeah.
To your point. But I do think it needed to be written. And I heard from the families of both of the women who died who said, "Hey, thank you for just not glossing over it. And, stopping for a moment to say that those lives were important because they were."
Well, go read it. Be prepared, to be real emotional when you read it. JohnCanzano.com, the piece up there. It's just well written, and probably tough to write. You tweeted something out. I think it was this morning, maybe it was last night, and it was a great tweet. It was just really good. Best advice you've ever got. What sparked that? You got something? Are you going to write something on this?
I think since Easter morning, right? Because Easter's supposed to be this, we celebrate redemption, revival. We celebrate renewal. It's and here I was writing this column about, the end of the lives of these two people. And then I started thinking, I read the comment section too. The comment section is profound on that piece. I would encourage people go read the comments, if nothing else, like the people who are weighing in and talking about their own experiences. But I've been thinking in the last 24 to 48 hours about, that kind of advice and the way that we teach each other and the way that we lean on each other. Like my dad probably, gave me great life advice always. He always challenged me to kind of do better, think better, do something right the first time. We have all these voices in our head that we grow up with. And it just struck me that social media is such a cesspool, Puck. It's a cesspool out there that why not? I just would love for people to share with each other. Like, what's the best advice you've ever received, or what comes to your mind when I say that? And for me, like I always tell people in media, like you're never as good or as bad as you think you are. Like this show, Puck, is not going to be as good or bad as you think it is. Right. It's never that extreme. You're never in that way. I also think it takes compromise is big. I think it takes no brains at all to come up with a solution that only works for one person. Like that is like a big sign of intelligence to me is when someone proposes something that only works for them. Like, and I go, "Oh, you're not very smart." Like, let's come up with something that works for everyone. But I would love, like, you tell me, best advice you ever received, Puck.
A long time. We use it today in our family. To my kids, a longtime coach said to me, old Don Forney. He always said, "You do you." I just love that. You do you, and and I think when I was in 13, I didn't really know what he meant by it. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll do me. But as I got older and I learned what it meant, at least what it meant for me was, you can't worry about what other people think, and you have got to just do what you want to do and how you want to feel and how you want to think. Because if you start thinking and acting like other people, then you lose your authenticity. So that's what I try to tell my kids, and just you do you. And I would say that for anything. Like, it's just, we get caught up in all these beliefs and ideas, and we just I can't put myself in someone else's shoes. I don't know how they feel.
Worry and anxiety. First of all, I don't think, if you're a person of faith, I don't think worry and anxiety is godly. I don't see it that way. I don't think it's a spiritual thing. But I also think worry and anxiety, we hear all these quotes now with the Stoics, this is what ancient philosophers said, worry is a thief or whatever. Like, we really can't control what's going to happen. And you can't worry. I've never just found function in worry. Worry and anxiety doesn't help me solve the problem. It doesn't help me run faster. It doesn't help me think better. We know that. And I think letting go of that anxiety and worry is a big thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I also think there is some value in, you talk about doing you, like that people will say now, be where you're at, be where your feet are, worry about the 20 square feet, but around you, manage that. Well, there's a lot of people that spend a lot of time projecting outward and looking at other folks, when I think a lot of the answers are probably right here. We know that.
I wrote it down. I was going to ask you about it, but then I know we had a lot of people that are from Portland and that listen, that tune into this show. And Big Mike is one of them.
Okay.
Even though Big Mike misspelled my name, but that's fine. Big Mike. I was going to ask you about this. They took down there in Portland a necessary step for this jock tax. We talked about it. This is what in part is going to fund the baseball stadium down there. Check one. They passed that. It goes now to what? The Oregon.
It goes past the Senate.
It goes to the House.
Goes to the House of Representatives. Then the governor will sign. The governor is saying she will sign this if it gets to her desk.
So it is. Yeah. We've kind of cleared a hurdle for either expansion or another team goes there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you had a picture of the renderings of the stadium. Is that what it's going to look like and where it's located?
Yeah, they have a parcel of land on the south waterfront. They literally told me that the home runs will fall into the Willamette River.
I'm going to tell people right now, go to John Canzano BFT on Twitter, that if that comes to fruition and that is built, that will be the most beautiful ballpark in Major League Baseball. And there will be no honestly close second. Now there is competition, right? Salt Lake City just passed something recently, did they not?
Yeah. Salt Lake City has rezoned a parcel of land, and they have the Miller family there, who heavily involved with hockey, heavily involved with the NBA team. They are saying they would love to be the owner of that. So they've got an owner. They've got a parcel of land. They're getting rezoned. Salt Lake City is a formidable opponent, and both viewed as Western possibilities. So if Major League Baseball says we're going to expand, we're going to put one in the West, it's Salt Lake City and Portland that right now would be head to head.
Any chance of relocate? I don't know what the hell's going to happen with the A's. Is there thought there? The Rays. There was a report with Tampa Bay that someone had already said that they were going to relocate to Raleigh. I don't. Maybe that was a fake story, or maybe they jumped the gun on that one. But would there be any talk? Are you hearing anything just about relocation of a team?
Yeah, and the Diamond Project, Craig Chake, former Nike executive, is the president of the Portland Diamond Project. He told me from the start that he said, we're aiming for expansion, but if a relocation opportunity pops up, Portland be all over that.
Yep.
They are saying that they will break ground on this stadium in 2027. They're talking about it like they're going to break ground on it, which is interesting. It's a departure from the traditional Portland wait and see sort of attitude. Like, it feels a little bit more like Vegas, where, hey, let's put a shovel in the ground and do this. But they are, I know they've had conversations with the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks were not happy with Maricopa County and the stadium improvements that were there. I don't know if that has changed in Arizona because they've gotten quiet on that front. I went to Vegas to go look at where the new stadium is. It's a pile of rubble. I put it on Instagram, Puck. Like they're moving rubble around, like they're trying to do something. But the whisper in Vegas is that like the financing isn't totally done, and the I guess the alacrity or the enthusiasm for the football, the NFL project and the NHL project in Vegas, and even the NBA possibility in Vegas feels like they have a lot more enthusiasm for those things than bringing a baseball team to the Strip. But looks like they're kind of moving rubble around, trying to fashion themselves a stadium. But who knows what happens with the A's? So I think Portland's holding out hope that if there is an expansion team awarded, that they're at the front of the line. And if not, in the interim, if the A's or the Diamondbacks or the Rays are looking for a home, I think both Salt Lake and Portland would be waving their arms saying, come on in. Now the jock tax, can I make it simple here just to
Sure.
And it's SB 110. It was passed in 2003. So it's already passed. It gives the Diamond Project $150 million, a bond towards the stadium. What they wanted to do is they said, hey, $150 million in 2003, that was enough to get a stadium started. It's not today. You need $1 billion now, right? So they want $800 million now. So they asked the state legislature to expand that bill, amend it, and make it $800 million, not $150 million. So, but what they want to do, Puck, it's not really public money in that it's not taxing my income. It's not taxing my neighbors. It's not a property tax. It's not a sales tax. Doesn't hurt the schools, doesn't hurt the roads. This is money that does not exist. What they want to do is they say, we're going to create a bond of $800 million that is based on, that is created by taxing the potential income of future players who play in the stadium. Now, home players would pay state income tax in Oregon. Visiting players across all sports already pay income tax when they visit a stadium. When Steph Curry plays in Portland against the Blazers, his $55 million salary is taxed. He files a state income tax return, not just in California where he works primarily, but in Oregon and every other NBA state that has a state income tax. So Steph Curry plays a game at Moda Center against the Blazers. I figured it out. It's about $60,000 that he pays for that one game in state income tax in Oregon. So I have told people, this isn't you paying for this stadium. Sure. It's Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge paying for the stadium.
It's hard, but it's hard for people. They hear tax and it's just, I don't want to
taxes. But I'm saying your taxes will not be impacted by this. It's created out of thin air. It does not exist. If there's no stadium, there's no bond. If there's no baseball team, there's no bond. So it only happens if the stadium is built and the team comes. Then there's $800 million that is created by potentially taxing the income of the players. I had a former NFL quarterback who is a college-educated guy text me and say, I don't understand this. Can you explain this to me? I said, when you played in the NFL, did you have to file tax returns in all these states? He said, yes. He says, my tax preparer, paid tax in like 8 different states during a season. Okay, same thing. State of Oregon's going to tax the players. They're going to use that, to leverage and create a bond that gives them $800 million to build the stadium so that the players can come. And when it's paid off after 30 years, then that's just revenue that goes into the state's, general fund. And he said, I don't like it. And so I'm like, okay, never mind. Can't do it.
I love that. We have gone long today, but I wanted to kind of sneak in one more. You can make it real quick if you'd like. I'm just real curious with you. You've interviewed a lot of people. You've talked to a lot of people. Who is someone you've yet to interview that you want to sit down and talk to?
Ooh.
Jody
Allen. Jody Allen came to mind.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah.
What are we doing here?
That'd be fascinating.
Like, if she just wants to be Queen Bee, then get a T-shirt and a little hat that's got bees on the end of it, buzz around the stadium, bring her out at halftime, let her get on a unicycle and ride it around.
God,
everybody will go yell "Queen Bee" when she comes out. All right?
Pay a lot of money to see that.
If she just wants to be Queen Bee, it's okay. Like if she said, "Hey, I was in my brother's shadow. Now I get to be in charge." That because it feels that way to me, Puck, especially with the Blazers. Like I would just love to talk to her about what are your plans here. Your brother wanted the team to be sold.
Yeah,
Celtics are being sold. TV deal's done. What are we doing here? Like, is she just collecting a management fee for being the trustee because and she likes to be in charge, or what is happening? So I think Jody Allen would be that person that I want to talk to. There isn't a sports figure that I look at and I'm in awe of. I've interviewed a lot of famous people and I just find regular folks more interesting.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I want to know.
Yeah.
All right. You're the best. Great work. Great lengthy visit. Always appreciate it. Have a great show today. Read all of his work, johncanzano.com, by the way. All right. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Puck.